I was on vacation, thousands of miles away from home, relaxing by the beach, when my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen and saw a message from my doctor that made my heart stop. "This is serious," the text said. I couldn't believe it. My hands started shaking as I read the words again, hoping it was just a mistake. But it wasn't. In that moment, everything changed. I had no idea that a simple message would lead me to a decision that would impact my entire future. I had been looking forward to this vacation for months. After weeks of non-stop work, stress, and barely any time to breathe, I was finally getting the chance to relax. The Caribbean, sun, sand, and the sound of the ocean. It was everything I had dreamed of. I had been here for just a few days, but it already felt like paradise. The hotel was perfect. The weather couldn't have been better, and I was finally starting to feel like myself again. I had no worries. Nothing. Just me, the beach, and a good book. For a moment, I let myself forget about everything back home. The daily grind, the emails, the never-ending responsibilities. It felt so freeing to just be here, to do nothing but unwind. I was in the best mood I'd been in for months. But then, it happened. I was sitting by the pool, the sun warming my skin, enjoying the quiet. My phone buzzed in my bag, but I didn't think much of it. It was probably a text from my friend, Sarah, asking about the trip or maybe a work message I could ignore for a while longer. But when I checked my phone, my stomach dropped. It was a text from Dr. Brooks, my family doctor. It wasn't the usual kind of text from him. It didn't start with "Hi, Lily" or anything casual. It just said, "Lily, we need to talk. This is serious. Please call me as soon as possible." My heart raced. I didn't even have to think twice before dialing his number. My mind was already running wild. What was going on? Had something gone wrong with my routine checkup? Was it a simple misunderstanding? Or was it something worse? I tried calling him immediately, but it went to voicemail. Panic started to creep in. I texted back, asking what was happening, but there was no response. I felt like the ground beneath me was shifting, and I didn't know how to react. I had come here to escape from everything, and now this. It felt like the weight of the world had just landed on my shoulders. As the minutes passed, I could feel the panic building. Was this some kind of mistake? Was it really that serious? Or was my mind just overreacting? I kept checking my phone, waiting for some sort of answer, but nothing came. The uncertainty, the not knowing, made it feel so much worse. I wanted answers, and I wanted them now. I stood up and paced around, trying to calm myself, but the more I thought about it, the more my anxiety grew. I couldn't enjoy the vacation anymore. The beach, the ocean, the sound of the waves. It all felt so distant now. I felt like I was being pulled back into the real world, a world where things weren't always as perfect as they seemed. It was the last thing I wanted to deal with, but I knew I couldn't avoid it. Something serious was happening and I had to face it. In that moment, I realized how fragile life really is. One message, one phone call, and everything can change in an instant. But I had no idea just how much my life was about to change. The minutes stretched on like hours. My phone sat in my hand, silent, with no new texts or calls from Dr. Brooks. I couldn't stop staring at it, as if somehow the answer would magically appear on the screen. The words, "This is serious," kept repeating in my mind. What did that even mean? Was it something urgent, like a health scare? Or was it a routine follow-up that had been blown out of proportion? I tried to push the worst thoughts out of my head, but it was impossible. Every time I looked at my phone, a wave of dread hit me again. The uncertainty was like a heavy weight pressing down on my chest. I walked down to the beach, trying to clear my head, but the world around me seemed distant, muted. The sound of the waves crashing on the shore didn't comfort me the way it usually did. Everything felt unreal, like I was moving through a dream. I tried to remind myself that I was on vacation. This was supposed to be a time to unwind, but all I could think about was what might be happening back home. in that sterile doctor's office where I'd had my last checkup. What was it that they had found? Was something wrong with my blood work? Had they seen something that wasn't there before? I tried to focus on the beauty of the place, the way the sun shone off the turquoise water, the way the breeze felt against my skin. But no matter how hard I tried, my mind kept circling back to that text. I could hear my doctor's voice in my head, calm and reassuring at first, telling me that everything was fine. But then came the twist. This is serious. Those words felt like a bomb had gone off in my brain, making everything else fade into the background. I couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible was waiting for me. I didn't even know what it was, but I could feel the weight of it pressing down on me. I decided to call my mom. She was always the one I turned to when I needed comfort, and I needed comfort now more than ever. As the phone rang, I took a deep breath, trying to steady my nerves. Maybe hearing her voice would calm me down, or at least take my mind off the worry. But when she answered, her voice was full of concern. "Lily, what's wrong? You sound stressed." I hesitated for a moment, unsure of how to explain it. "Mom, I got this text from Dr. Brooks, and it says, this is serious. I don't know what to think. He didn't explain what it is. And now I can't get a hold of him. I don't know what's going on." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. My mom wasn't one to panic easily, so I knew it must have been bad. She finally spoke, her voice gentle but firm. "Sweetheart, don't jump to conclusions. You're there and you're healthy. We don't even know what this is yet. It could be something minor. Maybe it's a simple mistake. Let's wait until you hear back from him. Just take a deep breath, okay?" Her words were meant to reassure me, and part of me knew she was right. But it didn't change how I felt. How could something serious be happening when I was so far away from home? I felt like I was disconnected from everything, unable to control the situation or even understand what was going on. My vacation, which had been so peaceful, was now nothing more than an overwhelming reminder that life can change in an instant. I hung up the phone, trying to hold on to my mom's calmness, but the panic was still there, gnawing at me. I thought about calling Dr. Brooks again, but I knew I would only end up in voicemail. And with every minute that passed, my anxiety grew. I couldn't sit by the pool or walk along the beach anymore. The thought of doing nothing was unbearable. What if I was ignoring something serious? What if I was waiting too long to act? I walked back to my hotel room, feeling like a weight was pressing on my chest, each step heavier than the last. I knew I needed to take action. I couldn't sit idly by while whatever this was loomed over me. I had to get answers. The idea of leaving the beach, cutting my vacation short, filled me with a sense of defeat. I didn't want to, not when everything was supposed to be perfect. But deep down, I knew it wasn't just about a vacation anymore. It was about my future, my health, and making the right decision. I couldn't just ignore this. I had to face whatever was coming. I decided to pack my things and head back to the nearest town. I needed to find better service, get a hold of the doctor, and figure out what was going on. This wasn't how I had planned the rest of my trip, but I couldn't escape the fact that I had a responsibility to myself to understand the seriousness of what was happening. The rest of the vacation didn't matter anymore. The only thing that mattered was getting the answers I needed, no matter where that might take me. The uncertainty was beginning to feel suffocating. I stood by the window in my hotel room, staring out at the vast ocean, but it felt like I was staring at my future, or at least what I thought could be my future. The more I tried to ignore it, the more I felt the weight of what was happening. The phone in my hand felt heavier with every passing minute, and the longer I waited for a response from Dr. Brooks, the more I felt like I was losing control of my life. I had come here to escape, but now it felt like the escape had vanished. What I was dealing with wasn't something that could be ignored or put off. It was real, and it was happening. I sat down on the bed, my mind racing with 1,000 different scenarios. What if it wasn't just a routine issue? What if it was something bigger, something that couldn't wait? What if the text was a warning of something that could change everything in my life? These questions kept swirling in my head. I was trying to hold on to some sense of peace, but the fear was creeping in, slowly filling every corner of my mind. It was no longer just a text message. It was the start of a bigger story, one I couldn't escape. The more I thought about it, the more the reality hit me. I had to make a decision. The fact that Dr. Brooks hadn't answered yet didn't help, but it wasn't going to solve anything by sitting and waiting. I couldn't ignore it anymore. The truth was, the only way I could move forward was by getting answers, and getting them now. I could either continue waiting here, spiraling in my thoughts, or I could take action and find out what was going on, no matter how hard it might be. I picked up my phone again, this time with more determination. I called Dr. Brooks's office again, but the line was still silent. No voicemail, no response, just that cold silence. I felt that familiar pang of frustration rise up in my chest. I had no choice but to leave the resort. If I couldn't get answers here, I would go where I could find them. I grabbed my bag, the decision feeling final as I stuffed my clothes into it, each motion more resolute than the last. I wasn't sure if my choice to leave was the right one, but at that moment, it felt like the only choice. I couldn't wait any longer. Whatever was going on, it was too important, and I needed to take control of the situation. I had to face whatever was ahead, and I wasn't going to do it in a vacation paradise where I couldn't focus. I needed to know what was happening with my health, and I couldn't let the uncertainty drag on any longer. Walking out of my room, I felt a mix of dread and determination. My mind was still reeling with questions, but there was something empowering about taking action. I had been sitting on the edge of panic for hours, letting the fear build up, but now I had made a choice, and in a strange way, that brought me a sense of calm. I didn't know what was going to happen next, but at least I was moving. I was no longer stuck in that in-between space, caught between ignorance and fear. I was taking control. I took a cab to the nearest town with better service, trying to settle my nerves. I needed to find a place where I could call Dr. Brooks directly, where I could get more than just vague responses. I thought about calling my mom again, but I didn't want to worry her more than she already was. She had told me to stay calm, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was running out of time, that the answers I needed might be slipping further and further away. The drive felt endless, each bump in the road reminding me of how far from home I really was. This wasn't just a vacation anymore. It had become a race against time. By the time I reached the small town, I had made up my mind. Whatever was going on, I would face it head on. I wasn't going to let the fear of the unknown control me any longer. The uncertainty was terrifying, but it was nothing compared to the idea of not knowing what was happening with my own health. I had to find out the truth. I had to be prepared for whatever was coming. Standing in front of the small cafe with the phone in my hand, I took a deep breath and dialed Dr. Brooks's number again. This time, I hoped that the answers would finally come. The waiting was over. It was time to face the truth. I stood there, heart racing as the phone rang in my hand. My fingers tightened around it as if I could somehow control the outcome just by holding on tighter. The sun was setting behind me, painting the sky with soft orange and pink hues, but I wasn't paying attention to the beauty around me. My entire focus was on the call I was about to have. The phone felt like it weighed a ton, each ring echoing in my chest as I prayed for the calm, professional voice of Dr. Brooks to answer. When the call finally connected, my breath caught in my throat. "Lily, it's Dr. Brooks." His voice was calm, but there was an underlying seriousness to it. "I'm sorry it's taken me a bit to get back to you. I know this is urgent." The way he said those words made the pit in my stomach grow even deeper. Urgent. That one word made everything feel more real, more serious. I had been hoping for some kind of mistake, some kind of misunderstanding that could be easily explained. But now, it was all sinking in. I could feel the knot in my chest tightening as I forced myself to breathe slowly. I've been going over your test results, Lily. Dr. Brooks continued, his tone steady, but the weight of his words undeniable. There's a concern about your liver function. The levels in your blood work are off, and we need to do some further tests. It could be a number of things, but it's important we act quickly. I didn't hear much after that. My head was spinning. Liver function. I had always been healthy. No history of liver problems. No symptoms that raised any alarms. I felt like the floor was falling out beneath me, and the words serious and urgent kept swirling in my mind, making it harder to think clearly. I had no idea what this could mean. The word cancer hovered in my mind like a shadow I couldn't escape. What if it was true? What if I was dealing with something life-threatening? The thought hit me hard, and I fought to push it aside. I don't understand, Doctor. Brooks, I managed to say, my voice shaking. What exactly does this mean? What should I do? He sighed softly, as if he were preparing to give me news he knew I wasn't ready for. We'll need to get you back here for more tests. The blood results are worrying, but we can't jump to conclusions yet. It could be a number of things, but whatever it is, we need to act quickly. I'd recommend coming in as soon as possible. You need to start treatment, or figure out what's going on. I stood there, frozen in place, trying to digest the information he had just given me. Treatment? I wasn't ready to think about that. I had come here for a vacation, to take a break from everything, and now I was faced with something I couldn't ignore. The weight of the decision in front of me was overwhelming. Should I leave now and fly back to start the tests and treatment? Or should I wait a few more days to finish my vacation and enjoy the time I had left? Each option seemed unbearable. Dr. Brooks's voice broke through my thoughts. Lily, I know this is a lot, but it's important that you take action. You can't ignore it. I'm here to help you through this, but you need to come in and we'll figure out what's happening. It's not the end of the world, but it is serious. The reality of it all settled in. My vacation didn't matter anymore. What mattered was my health, and I knew I couldn't ignore it. This wasn't something I could push aside for another day. The uncertainty, the fear, it all rushed at me like a tidal wave. But even through the panic, I knew what I had to do. I had to face this. No more running from it. I'll come back, I said, my voice trembling with the weight of my decision. I'll get on the next flight home. I need to get this taken care of. As I ended the call, I stood there in silence for a moment, staring at the screen of my phone. The vacation I had been looking forward to, the time I had planned to escape from everything, was now a distant memory. But in that moment, I realized that my future was more important than a few days of relaxation. I had a decision to make, one that would change everything, and I had to face it head on. The fear was still there, but I knew it was time to act. I started walking back to the hotel, each step heavy with the realization that my life was about to change. Whatever happened next, I knew I would get through it. I had no choice but to face the unknown. But now, at least, I was taking control. The rest of the vacation, the peace I had come here to find, was gone. But I knew the decision I had made was the right one. The road ahead might be difficult, but I was ready to take it, no matter what it brought. The flight back home was a blur. I sat in the airport, staring out the window, watching the world pass by. But my mind was far from calm. All I could think about was what awaited me. I had made the decision to leave my vacation early, but the truth was, it felt like I was running towards something I wasn't ready for. The idea of facing the unknown, of dealing with the fear of what might happen next, made my chest tighten with anxiety. But there was no turning back. I had chosen to confront whatever this was, and now I had to deal with the consequences. Once I landed, I was hit by a wave of overwhelming emotions. My family was waiting for me at the airport. My mom, my brother, even my best friend Sarah, who had been texting me nonstop ever since I'd left the resort. They could see the worry in my face before I even said a word. My mom rushed to hug me, but I could tell she was just as terrified as I was, trying to keep it together for me. She kept asking if everything was okay, but I didn't have the answers yet. All I knew was that I had to go to the doctor and figure out what was happening. It was hard to explain the sense of dread that had followed me since the moment I received that text. The fear of the unknown felt suffocating, like a shadow that refused to leave. The next few days were a blur of appointments, tests, and waiting. The doctor's office became a place I couldn't escape from fast enough. The routine blood work I had done a few weeks ago had led to this, and now I was facing a reality I had never even considered. Every test result, every scan, felt like it was adding to the weight pressing down on me. But as much as I wanted to shut it all out and pretend it wasn't happening, I couldn't. The truth had already been laid out in front of me, and I had no choice but to face it. When the doctor finally called me in for the results, my heart was pounding. I sat in the sterile, quiet room, the hum of the fluorescent lights above me only adding to the tension. The doctor explained the situation again, with more details this time. The issue with my liver function was serious, but it wasn't cancer. It wasn't as life-threatening as I had feared, but it was still a major health concern. There was inflammation, possibly from an underlying condition that had gone unnoticed for a while. The treatment wouldn't be easy, but it was manageable with the right care and lifestyle changes. As I processed the news, relief mixed with a deep sense of exhaustion. The fear that had consumed me was replaced by a different kind of weight, a responsibility to take care of my body, to make the changes necessary to get better. The road ahead wasn't going to be easy, and it wasn't going to be quick, but I knew that the decision I had made to come back, to face the unknown, had been the right one. In that moment, I realized how important it was to take charge of your own health, to listen to your body, and not ignore the warning signs. I had been so caught up in my busy life that I had brushed off some of the smaller symptoms, but now I knew better. The weeks that followed were filled with adjustments. My diet had to change, I had to take medication regularly, and I needed to find ways to manage my stress better. It wasn't easy, and there were moments where I felt frustrated and overwhelmed. I missed the carefree days of my vacation, the freedom of being away from everything, but at the same time, I felt a sense of clarity I had never felt before. I had learned something important. Life is fragile, and sometimes you have to hit pause to make sure you're truly taking care of yourself. I started reaching out to my family more, letting them in on the journey I was now facing. My mom, who had always been my pillar of support, stood by me through every appointment, every moment of uncertainty. I couldn't have done it without her. And Sarah, who had been texting me constantly, made sure I didn't feel alone through all of this. Through the struggle, I began to see the power of taking action. It wasn't just about making decisions. It was about following through, even when it was scary. The decision to face the fear, to come back and get the answers I needed, had been difficult, but it had ultimately brought me closer to understanding my body and my health. I learned that sometimes you can't wait for life to hand you the answers. You have to go after them, even when it feels like everything is falling apart. In the end, the experience changed me in ways I never expected. I gained a new perspective on health, on family, and on the importance of listening to my own needs. And while I had to cancel my vacation, I realized that the real gift wasn't in the days I spent on the beach. It was in the chance to take charge of my future and the strength I found within myself when faced with the unknown.